Here are 10 stats that can help you take home that W in Week 9. Starting with 56.8, that is Rachaad White's snap percentage in the 3 games the Bucs were trailing this year and had to play from behind. And in those 3 games, he has 18 targets, which is second only to Alvin Kamara's 20 among all running backs. Last week, when the Bucs were trailing for most of that game, he led all Bucs running backs with 55% of the snaps and ran a route on 53% of the dropbacks. He also had a very strong 6 targets in that game, and now he gets a road matchup against the Kansas City Chiefs defense that is one of the best in the NFL, one of the best against the run, in a game script that is probably going to be going against Tampa Bay, where they're going to have to throw the ball a lot once again this week. No, Rachaad White doesn't have like a week winning type of ceiling, but if you need a PPR flex play, I think he's got plenty of upside for you. Take a shot on Rachaad White on Monday night. I think he comes through in PPR leagues. The next stat you need to know is 95.1. That is Rhamondre Stevenson's expected fantasy points in the 6 healthy games he has played this year, and that even includes a game he was benched for fumbling. He's quietly been one of the best fantasy running backs when fully healthy, and it's like nobody even realizes it here. He's a true workhorse running back in this offense. He gets all the goal line carries, he catches passes, and this week they get a Titans defense that, sure, they're not like a sieve against the run, but they rank 20th against the run and 2nd against the pass. Not to mention, there's a chance it's Jacoby Brissett under center, which means we're just going to get a healthy dose of Rhamondre Stevenson against this Titans defense. This should be a game where neither team is blowing the other team out. Both teams can commit to the run if they want to. I really like both running backs in this game, but I already talked about Tony Pollard on the Booms video. So now I'm talking about Rhamondre Stevenson. If you need an RB2 this week, he's one of your better choices, in my opinion. The next stat you need to know is 10.4. That is Amari Cooper's targets per route run since joining the Buffalo Bills. And last week, he was only targeted on 2 out of 23 routes. He was even behind Dawson Knox in terms of targets per route run. With Keon Coleman starting to emerge and Khalil Shakir locked into that slot role, Amari Cooper has been stuck on the outside 88% of the time since joining Buffalo, and last week it went all the way up to 95% of the snaps. This is bad news for Amari Cooper this week because the Miami Dolphins give up the 2nd fewest fantasy points to outside wide receivers, and corner Jalen Ramsey looks fully healthy right now and has been playing great. I think this is another week where you need to fade Amari Cooper until we see his role change in this offense, and I don't know when that is going to happen. Next stat you need to know is 3.8. That is the highest yards per carry in any game for J.K. Dobbins this year since week 2. After those 2 nice games to start the season, it was kind of like forgotten that, hey, this guy just tore his Achilles and, not too long ago also tore his ACL. I think we're starting to see the effects of this. When he can't rip off those long runs, when he needs to grind out yardage, it just isn't there for him. Last week, he went into that Saints matchup against a defense that was averaging 5.5 yards per carry against, and he hit 3.8 in that game. Week before, against the Cardinals' bottom 10 run defense, 2.9 yards per carry. Now he has to face the Browns' top 10 rush defense this week. They've only allowed 2 100-yard rushers on the entire season. Yes, Dobbins gets the volume and he can always score a touchdown, but man, this week in this matchup, he is a very risky RB2. Before I get to the rest of the stats, let me just say, if you're enjoying the video, getting value out of it, do me a favor, hit that like and subscribe button. Greatly appreciate it. The next stat you need to know is 79.4. That is Alexander Mattison's expected fantasy points since week 5, since he took over the starter role, which is the top among all running backs. That's right. No other running back has been expected to score more fantasy points than Alexander Mattison. Now, he hasn't scored those fantasy points for a couple of reasons. Number 1, he's stuck on the Raiders. Number 2, he's not very good. I mean, I'm just going to be honest here. This is not an elite running back. And number 3, he's had some tough matchups. But this week, he gets a Bengals defense that, no, they're not terrible against the run. They're kind of middle of the pack. But they have allowed over 100 rushing yards in 5 games this year. And if you take out the game 2 weeks ago when Nick Chubb was coming back from that ACL tear and far from 100%, they've only held 2 running backs to under 100 yards all season long. Mattison gets all the goal line run in this offense. He catches all the passes. He's good enough with volume. I think this is a week he can pay off. No, he's never going to have the ceiling to be, a top 5 running back, maybe even a top 10 running back in fantasy. But this week, I think he's a solid RB2 with some upside. The next stat you need to know is 12. That was Elijah Moore's targets in week 8, which led all Browns wide receivers. He also had 8 catches for 85 yards. A very nice game here for Elijah Moore. Now, you do need to know that this is a very tough matchup this week against the Chargers defense. He's a guy who plays out of the slot, but it doesn't matter. The Chargers are strong against wide receivers out wide. In the slot, it doesn't matter. This is a good defense, a good secondary. This is not a great spot for Elijah Moore. And we have been trapped by Elijah Moore many times in the past. But look, if you're desperate this week at wide receiver, and a ton of us are, we have some big name wide receivers out for the season, out for week 9. Go grab Elijah Moore. I think at least in a PPR league, he can give you a floor, but at a minimum, this guy should probably be on your bench because going forward, he definitely will get some better matchups, and it looks like he potentially could be Jameis Winston's #1 target. Now, one stat I definitely know will hit this week, that is Jalen Hurts higher than half a yard. That's right, Jalen Hurts gets 1 yard, you win. If you're a new customer to Underdog and you're signing up for the first time using promo code ENDGAME, you get this new customer special. Not to mention, you also get up to $1,000 in bonus cash that you can use right away to make pick'ems like this one right here. The next stat you need to know is 10. That is where Trevor Lawrence ranks among QBs in fantasy scoring since week 5. He's been kind of a garbage time king this year, which, look, not good for real life if you're a Jags fan, but great for fantasy football. And this week they get another tough matchup on the road against the Philadelphia Eagles, who don't have an elite secondary, but do have an elite offense and will probably put up lots of points against this Jags defense, and once again force Trevor Lawrence to have to throw the ball a ton in the second half. Now, I know his receivers are banged up right now, and that certainly makes him a bit riskier this week, but if you're in a deeper league and you need a streaming option at QB, and let's say Bo Nix, Stafford, those guys are gone, take a gamble on Trevor Lawrence. I think he can come through. And then you need to know 74.7. That was Parker Washington's slot percentage in 2023 in the games Christian Kirk missed. He is going to be the guy who's going to fill that void for Christian Kirk and run routes out of the slot. Now, in fairness, Parker Washington didn't do a whole lot last year. He was a rookie, getting used to the NFL. They had Calvin Ridley, they had Zay Jones, they had an Evan Ingram. They didn't really need Parker Washington, but this week, they might not have Brian Thomas Jr., he's a game time decision. They might not have Gabe Davis, he's a game time decision. They might actually need Parker Washington this week. He's entering year 2 now. He could take a step forward. We see guys like Cedric Tillman, a year 2 player, when the opportunity presented itself, he stepped up. Maybe Parker Washington could do the same thing. This isn't a guy I think you need to be starting in shallower leagues like 12, maybe even 14 teamers, depending on how deep your roster is and how decimated you are by injury. But in deeper leagues, take a shot on Parker Washington this week. It's a good matchup against this Eagles secondary. The Jags are probably going to have to throw the ball a ton. He's worth a stream if you need him in deeper leagues. The next stat you need to know is 0.57. That is Jordan Addison's fantasy points per route run against cover 3. And this week, they get the Indianapolis Colts, who play cover 3 at the highest percent in the entire NFL. Almost half the time the Colts are in cover 3. And what's surprising about this stat is that he is actually better against cover 3 than Justin Jefferson is. Now, it's very close, but still, the fact that he's better means he has a great chance this week to finally pay off. I know Jordan Addison has been disappointing the last 2 weeks in good matchups, but I think you got to give him one more chance this week. The Vikings are at home, so hopefully Sam Darnold can actually keep it going past the first quarter into the second half and give Jordan Addison some chances. This is a guy that can always hit a big play, always score a touchdown. Yes, he's risky, but if you're looking for that flex with upside, he can deliver for you. And the last stat you need to know is 1. That is the Baltimore Ravens pass rate over expectation on defense. That means teams are throwing against them over expectation more often than any other team. Why? Because teams can't run the ball against them. And then you also need to know the stat 8. That is the Denver Broncos pass rate over expectation on offense. Why? Because they can't run the football. This is a match made in heaven for a guy like Bo Nix, who last week showed some passing game chops. 243 yards, 3 passing touchdowns. Now he gets this Ravens defense who is elite against the run, terrible against the pass, and he's in an offense that's terrible running the football and probably is going to need to throw the ball a lot because the Ravens are probably going to be blowing them out. I mentioned Trevor Lawrence as a potential streaming option in your deeper leagues, but I think Bo Nix is worth a stream even in shallower leagues this week. If you're really desperate at QB, you shouldn't need him in an 8 or 10 teamer, but I think he's worth a gamble in 12 team leagues or deeper this week. But you definitely need to check out our Week 9 playlist. Got videos to help you everything you need. Start, sit, booms, waiver wire if you still need to add them. Players to stash. We got you covered right here in our Week 9 playlist.